Our featured author this week on the Writers' Corner live show is none other than Stephen Tingle from South Carolina in the USA with his book Graveyard Fields. Don't go away. We will be right back. If you're just joining us, then welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. I'm your host, Brigitte Limbanda from Cape Town in South Africa, and our stream is made possible by Creative Edge, StreamYard, and BeLive Media. A special warm welcome to you, the audience, because this is an audience-centric show. So please, if you have any comments, questions for our author today, or if you're brand new and you've never watched the show before, we have been going for over 3 years. So let us know that you're new and we'd be happy to give you a shout out. We're going to be talking to our amazing author, Stephen Tingle, this week. But first, before we bring Stephen on, let me say a warm welcome to my friend and co-host, Mary Elizabeth Jackson. She is a special needs and disabilities advocate and also an award-winning author. She has launched the Poolicious children's book series and more recently 2 new books, Entrepreneurs and also Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore, which is a collection of stories of 29 women who have shown amazing resilience. So with that, Mary, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you? So excited to be here this morning. It's evening where you are and morning where I am. And so we've got the day covered, don't we?
We absolutely do. We absolutely do. And always good to see you.
Thank you. So good to see you too.
Yeah, and our amazing guest for today is Stephen Tingle. He's from South Carolina. He's a freelance writer, author, and journalist. In addition to having served as editor-at-large for Tempus, a luxury lifestyle publication for private owners, he contributes to a variety of both national and regional publications, including Robb Report, Modern Luxury, Town, Birmingham, and also Discovery, which is the Cathay Pacific in-flight magazine. Wow.
Very cool. I know. We've never had anyone on who did what Stephen does. So we're so excited to have him here and talk about that part of the writing world, which is, you know, not something that is always talked about.
Absolutely. And then also one of the scripts he wrote details the early history of the South Carolina textile industry. And that's going to air on PBS. But today we're going to be talking mostly about his debut novel, Graveyard Fields, which was published by Crooked Lane Books. So shall we invite him to join us?
Hi,
Stephen, welcome to the show.
I'm here. I am here.
He's here. He's on the top of the mountain in South Carolina. Looking over.
That's right.
For real.
That's right.
Yeah.
For real. For real.
It's
wow.
a beautiful part of the country, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yes, lots of stories in those mountains over there, Sue. You got lots of writing to do.
Indeed. I'm going to stay busy.
Yes, you are.
So thank you both for having me on. I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Well, we're so glad you're here.
Big well, unlike most writers, you've kind of had a different entry into becoming an author and writing your first novel, as opposed to, you know, as Mary said just before we started the show, a lot of people dream about writing all life, and so it's something that they have, you know, often set aside time for. But your journey has been somewhat different. Tell a little bit how you, I mean, you are a writer extraordinaire. How did you find your way with words? I mean, you are exceptional as a writer. How did your love affair with words start? Were you, you know, is it something, a gift you always had? Did you develop it? How did this all fall into place for you?
It fell into place slowly, very, very slowly. I was in the golf business until I was 40. My parents owned a golf course in North Carolina, so they opened that course the year before I was born. So I grew up right there in that business and stayed there until I was 40. And growing up, I wasn't even a big reader. I did not enjoy reading until I was probably in my late 20s or early 30s. And then when I left the golf business, again, when I was 40, that was around 2008, I guess. 2009, I needed something to do. All my training, all my education, all my experience was in golf and in restaurants. We had a couple of restaurants there at the golf course. And I wanted to just do something completely different. I wanted to do something creative. And, you know, writing seemed like a really cool gig to me, but I didn't know anything about it. I really enjoyed long form journalism, like what Esquire was doing back in those days, and the New Yorker still does, and some other magazines. And I was so naive, I thought, well, I guess you just email these editors and tell them that you want to write stories for them, and they give you assignments and send you these huge checks, and this is how you do it. And no one responded to my emails, and I was really kind of distraught. But I kept working at it, and finally, I found a golf trade magazine that happened to have the magazine had been around for years, but there was a brand new editor-in-chief. And just based on my experience managing this golf course for many years, he said, I'll give you a shot to write a 600-word piece. And it scared me to death, because now I finally had to do it. And I actually Googled how to write a magazine article. I didn't know how to quote people, or I didn't know what to do. And somehow I cobbled it together and I sent it in, and he liked it and said, okay, here's your next one. And here's your next one. So I wrote for that magazine for a few months, and that led to writing for another magazine, another golf trade magazine. And I quickly learned, wow, you could make hundreds of dollars a year as a magazine writer. And I knew I needed to really get a lot more magazines on board. And I did still want to get out of the golf world totally. So I got connected with a great magazine in Greenville, South Carolina, where I live now, called Town. And I've been writing monthly for them for the past 10, 11 years now. And of course, that body of work led to more magazines and different opportunities, including some corporate work. It led to my little stint with Tempus, which is was a magazine for private jet owners. And to me, magazine writing has been wonderful. It's given me the opportunity to travel all over, meet some interesting people, tell some wonderful stories. So I've really, really enjoyed that. I'm very grateful that I made that decision to get into that world.
That is magnificent. Actually, hearing you, how you're step by step, because anybody out there who might be listening or watching that wants to get into the writing world and thinks maybe they're interested in writing in magazines. I've always wondered about it myself. I've never taken that step forward, even though there are magazines out there I'd love to write an article for. But it is a different format. And I guess it's, in a lot of ways, there's excitement there because it's always changing, as opposed to writing a 50,000 word, 100,000 word, 75,000 word book where you're in that same, you're in that same story for a long time. And then that birth process, it takes so long. And then once it's done and the high of all of it's over, you got to start on the next thing. And so with magazine writing, it's constantly changing. And so there's that thrill there of getting to constantly come up with new material, or maybe you have to research and, using, they say you should write about what you know. So you obviously have done that. It's great. But I think it's also amazing that you spent all that time, working at a golf course, your parents own one. Were your parents upset that you did not become a professional golfer? I know this is not a writing question, but my husband loves golfing, and it's so funny. I think he would have been happy to be a professional golfer. But how did you get out of that? And your parents not, were they okay with you not, making all this money as a golfer, gonna let your parents retire someday, kind of thing?
Right. And I did consider that briefly. It's not something I really wanted. I was very interested in the management side of golf, and actually probably a little bit more interested in the two restaurants we had in that world. But there was a brief period I thought, if I could become a professional golfer, that would be something, and that could take me to a whole different level. But back then, I think it's changed now, but one of the first things you had to do then, after you applied, you had to take what's called a playability test, and you play 2 consecutive 18-hole rounds of golf, and you have to score under a certain number. And on the very first hole, I hit my first 3 drives out of bounds and had a 10 on the very first hole, which basically I was done after the first hole, right? And I had 35 to go, and it was already over for me. So I thought, you know what, the golf guides are saying, you know what, go back to the restaurant and go back to managing the course. This is not for you. So, and I'm glad it wasn't, actually.
That is great. That's good that you found out early and didn't try.
I'm glad. It was a blessing.
Yeah. And so are your parents excited for your, I would imagine they're excited for yours, and you're older now, obviously, but they were probably excited for your success, because sometimes we make that choice to go out of the bounds of what's in our life, or what we're educated for, or anybody thinks we're even going to do with our life. And sometimes you fall flat on your face, so.
Sure. And I think it's a little different going out when you are maybe in your, just turned 40 and maybe having a bit of a midlife crisis and really want to change gears into something else. But my father died in 2005, so I was still at the course when he was there, and then my mom and I kind of decided we wanted to sell the course and kind of do something different. Our hearts weren't in it after my father passed away. So that's at the time I left. My mom stayed there for several more years. She couldn't bring herself to sell it at any time the opportunity happened. She would just kind of back off at the last minute. It was a very emotional thing for her to do. She eventually did sell it, but she's just been giddy with what I've been doing, and has been very proud of the change. And she's somewhat creative herself, so there's a bit of jealousy in there too. I think that but she's certainly very proud of it, and it makes me very happy. And she's been a huge reader. She was a huge reader her whole life. especially detective fiction. That was her number one genre. She was not interested in romance or political thrillers. She wanted just hard-boiled detective fiction. So maybe somehow I got that from her, that love of that genre from her.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. I just want to give a huge big shout to Hamid. He's one of our viewers that's been watching us for a long time, and he's a little YouTuber. I think he's maybe 14 years old now, but doing great stuff over on YouTube. And he pops in every now and then to say hello, and he says to tell you that he loves golfing.
Oh, good. That's great. That's nice of him to stop by.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes, I always love when I see him popping up in the comments. You know, that's what it's all about, just being able to engage with the viewers. Oh my goodness.
He's a young entrepreneur. He's a young entrepreneur being on YouTube. And it's brilliant to see someone his age having a focus, a purpose, a drive, something that he wants to do. So I totally commend him on that. It's amazing.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
But also shout out to his parents.
Yeah.
You know, his parents are always in the same room with him when he live streams on YouTube, you know, to keep him safe. So they're being very responsible.
That's
and
great.
Yeah. One's got to do that these days. There's some, you know, I love being on the internet and doing what I do, but there are very unscrupulous and unsavory characters out there as well. So one's got to be careful.
That's true. My mom would be in the background if I would let her.
You have to tell your mom we said hi, because we're both moms. So, you know.
She would be standing back there in the corner. Arms crossed, watching everything.
All right, next interview, you need to bring your mom on. So it'll be the Mom and Steven show.
Oh my goodness. How has life changed for you since you've released your novel? You know, has it opened new doors for you? Are you planning to write another one? Was this kind of like just your entry into becoming an author, or, you know, some people just want to get one book done and that's it, and they're happy with that? Or is this something that you see yourself? I mean, you're brilliant at it. There's no two ways about it. But do you see yourself writing again? Yeah.
Well, you know, it started really as an experiment a few years ago. After I'd been doing magazine work for about 6, maybe 7 years, I decided I was curious what it would be like to make something up, because as magazine writing is all nonfiction. I'm interviewing people, I'm telling their stories, and it takes a lot of work. You got to record these people. You got to transcribe the interviews. You got to get all the facts straight. You've got a certain word count that you have to hit. You've got a week, maybe 2 weeks to get this done before you move on to the next thing. And I'd happened to have just finished whatever the latest Michael Connelly novel was at the time. This was like 2016, I guess. And I loved it. Like I love all of his books. And I got very jealous, because I thought, I've got to do all this magazine work, and this Conley guy just gets to sit in his pajamas and make things up all day, and I want to know what that's like. No,
it sounds easier than it is, I think, though.
I thought this guy's got it made, so I'm going to do that. And honestly, I thought this will just be an experiment. I'll write a few thousand words and realize this is really tough, and give it up. And that's why I didn't really tell anybody what I was doing, because I didn't want anybody to ask me how it was coming, because I really didn't think it would ever be finished. But I found it to be a lot of fun, actually. And it was work, but it was fun, and I enjoyed it. And after a few months, I had 40,000 words, which was about half of a novel. And I got really scared, because I thought, is this worth anything? what I've done. I don't want to. It's been fun, but I don't want to put another 6, 8, 10 months in to finishing this if it's just going to rot in a drawer somewhere, or it's of no value to anybody. And a friend gave me the best piece of advice. She's a food writer in Charleston, and has written a couple of regional nonfiction books. She said, don't wait till you're finished to look for an editor or ask for help. Go to some of the books that you love that are on your shelf, look at the acknowledgments page, find some editors, and if the same name pops up a couple of times, see if you can connect with them. And that's what I did. And I found a great guy named Benjamin Leroy, who at that time was a freelance editor. And before that, he had his own publishing company that he ended up selling to Simon & Schuster. So he was the real deal. And he was kind enough to read the first, I guess, 30 pages. And he said, what do you want to know? I said, I want to know if I'm wasting my time. Should I keep going, or should I just give this up and go back to magazines? And he said, my advice is finish the damn book and then let me edit it. And that's what I did.
Wow, fantabulous.
So yeah, it was, my friend gave me some great advice, and Ben was a great support sender for me, and was kind enough to send me an email once a week and say, stay on schedule, keep going, get this done, let's go, which I needed at that point.
Yes, right. Yeah, you do as a writer, especially when you're in that deep. But you know, you've given a couple of gold nuggets. So anyone out there writing, if you're not sure, whether you're sure or not, find an editor to give you some feedback. And there are a lot of services out there where you can find an editor, and people who, if you're on a budget, you can find someone who is not going to charge as much, because editing can be expensive. But you also want somebody who's good and qualified. And I think that's really a very, very important, because I know from experience in my own home, my 17-year-old is 76,000 words into a YA fantasy. And she's having those mental breakdowns of, and I'm saying that with lightheartedness, okay, that, oh my gosh, should I be doing this? Have I put too many words in it? She's doing all that questioning of herself. So she's got somebody who's editing through right now. And I'm doing that also for her, to give her that feedback. Because as a first time author, writer doing this, you really sometimes don't know if it's too much, too little, if it's ridiculous, you need to throw the papers out. But, something that you have said to us earlier before we got on, which I think we need to focus on for a moment, is that you were not an avid reader as a child. You didn't like books. I know for boys, sometimes I think it seems like a lot of books are geared for the avid reader that is sometimes a girl, or it turns out to be more girls. I think boys sometimes, they want to do other things than read, because, reading requires sitting down and being calm and quiet. Boys have lots of energy mostly, but I think that what, you're a testament to for parents out there who has a child that may not be an avid reader or really like reading, is that there's still that possibility to do something with writing and with providing content for folks, and enjoyment, entertainment. So I think, if you have a child who doesn't really care for reading, just keep encouraging them, and don't give up. So I think you're a good testament to that, because look at what you're doing now. Whether you like to read or not, you have to, because you got to read what you write.
That's exactly right. Well, I think for me, it was actually finding the right books, and I didn't care for reading, but I realized I loved dialogue. I loved dialogue in old movies and in old TV shows, and I would memorize this dialogue. And then I found the book The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler, and read that, and the dialogue is just so amazing in all of his novels. And that's what got me hooked. And once I read Chandler, I started, finding contemporaries of his, like Dashiell Hammett and Ross McDonald, and then that led me to Elmore Leonard and Harlan Coben, and then I just started reading like wildfire because I just loved these characters in these books. It just took me a while to get there. So yeah, there's certainly hope.
So Stephen, I'm always curious to know, how did you come up with the title? How did you decide on the title? Was that easy? Was it difficult? And then do you have a favorite piece out of the book that you could read to us?
Yes, I was going to say, yes, please read. if you have a copy with you.
I do. The title was easy because Graveyard Fields is an actual location where, and part of the action in the book takes place in Graveyard Fields. It's a hiking destination right off the Blue Ridge Parkway in Western North Carolina. And that's where I grew up. And I just always thought that was the coolest sounding name of a place. I just, that name it took 10 seconds to come up with that title. So I was very grateful that the publishers decided to keep that.
Well, that's very nice because, sometimes one can go back and forth with a title. And also the design of the cover. Where did that come from?
That came from the publisher, but they had asked me to send in some just ideas, not necessarily book covers, but just some ideas that I liked. And I thought the woods plays a big role in this book. So I thought having the woods would be very important, but I was very happy with what they came back with. I think it strikes the right tone for the book.
It does. Yeah, I really like it. It's just, it kind of just sets the tone for the book. And it's a very striking image. When you look at it, it's intriguing. It kind of has that sort of sense of mystery.
Can you hold it up?
And you wanted to find out what's in it.
Yeah, hold up the cover so everybody can know what we're talking about. Because I can do it if you didn't have it, but yeah, look at that. It's hardback. Yours is hardback, isn't it? Yes.
Hardback, yes.
Hardbacks are beautiful.
They are.
I love it. Yeah. So can you read? Do you have a favorite paragraph or moment in the book? You probably have quite a few, but
I have quite a few. I'm not really sure.
I know it's difficult picking a favorite one when it's your book.
Because you're basically married to it.
It's wonderful to have a hard copy of the book. Somehow the hard copy is different from the electronic versions. It's just never the same, being able to page through a book.
Oh, it's just it's so nice to turn pages
I know.
And feel the paper. Yeah, it's nice.
And and especially so when your own words, right? It just has a very different feel to it.
Yeah, so I can just read you just a couple of minutes, if that's okay.
That'll be fantastic.
This is chapter 13 in the book, where the protagonist, who's named Davis Reed, is he's found a set of keys near Graveyard Fields, and he's taking them to the sheriff's department to drop them off because he doesn't know who the keys belong to. So it's kind of the lost and found of the county.
Wonderful.
The Haywood County Sheriff's Department was located just off Main Street in the middle of downtown Waynesville. The street was a half-mile-long strip flanked by restaurants, real estate offices, and a disturbingly high number of stores selling cinnamon brooms and enamel mugs. Waynesville was a tourist town, and proudly so, but it was mid-November and the sidewalks were practically empty. I guess things would pick up closer to Thanksgiving, which was only a few days away. I didn't know how the store stayed in business during these cold winter months. I would just have to add that to the long list of things I didn't know. I pulled into the sheriff's department parking lot and found an empty spot marked visitor. I walked through the department's front door and entered a small lobby where the top of a gray bouffant hovered near the far side of a tall counter. "How can I help you?" the bouffant's owner said as I approached. "I'm looking for Dale Johnson. He's on patrol at the moment. Is there something I can assist you with?" "Can you give him this?" I put the key ring on the counter. The woman, who if her name tag could be trusted was Barbara, grabbed a yellow Post-it note. "And your name is?" "Davis Reed." She wrote my name on the note, saying the words out loud as she jotted them down. When she finished, she gave me a knowing look. "Wait a minute. You're the writer." I was about to tell her she was wrong. I'd been known as many things in my life: officer, private detective, liar, drunk. But writer was new to me, especially since I'd not yet written a word. "Deputy Johnson told me about you," Barbara said. "He says you're writing a book about Cold Mountain. You know there's already a book about that." "So I've heard." "I'm a writer too. I have a blog. It's about Southern cooking. I write down all the steps of a recipe and post them along with pictures I take with my phone. My last one was about pinto beans. It's a popular blog. I have over 30 readers. You should look it up. It's called Barb's Country Kitchen."
I love it. Oh, I love it. And you know what? I know that area so well because my in-laws live in Canton. And
oh, really?
my mom lived in Asheville for 30 years, and we were supposed to go over there this weekend. So,
Are you?
yeah, so I'm like, okay, I have to look up Graveyard Fields then, because I'll have to ask my mother-in-law. But if you go out on her front porch, you can see Cold Mountain from her front porch.
Yes.
Way in the distance.
Yeah. Yeah. So Crusoe, where this book is set and where I grew up, I went to high school in Canton.
Did you? You did not.
Yes.
Oh did. My word. What a small world. How fun is that? Oh my gosh. That is amazing. It's such a beautiful area over there. So beautiful.
Crusoe is about 10 miles from Canton.
Okay. That's fantastic. Yeah. I love hot springs. There's so many great little, Brigetti, there's all these little, because of the mountain area there, there's all these little, I guess you could call them gold nuggets in the country, just sprinkled in, that are nuzzled into the mountains over there. Yeah. And a lot of history. Area. Yeah, it really is beautiful. So wonderful.
Oh my goodness. That is amazing. It is a small world after all, isn't it? Yeah.
Indeed it is.
I'm always gobsmacked at meeting people from around the globe, as we have, with the Writers Corner live show, authors from everywhere. And last week we had an author that had been to Africa and actually wrote a story about South Africa. And that was kind of, how did that even happen?
Yeah, so she knows all about where Brigetti is and all about what's going on there.
Oh, goodness.
And she was a journalist, part of her repertoire of things that she does. And yeah, so that's so cool for Brigetti. And she's actually, the author lives in Canada, but she was in Italy doing her book tour. So yeah, so it's a small world. And we've had Sebastian, okay, I'm drawing a blank on his last name, and he lives in Asheville. So I'm not sure if you know him or not.
Oh, no, I don't.
Okay, I'll have to look him up for you, because we had him on last year, I think it was, Brigetti. And he's up there in the mountains in North Carolina, over in Asheville. So
okay, great.
Yeah.
We've been trying for the last couple of weeks to get, because, the Writers Corner Live show has been going for 3 years. And every year what we do is we do a Zoom, so we can bring in all the authors together so they can meet each other. And that's always great fun. And we're still trying to get that done for our 30th celebration.
We are going to do it. And yes, we're going to do it. And maybe it needs to be around Christmas, that we'll just celebrate the holiday and the new year coming in. And we'll do that. Idea. So I think that's what we need to do, Brigetti. We can all wear hats and, I don't know, have our little champagne toast or coffee or tea. So
count me in.
All right, Stephen. We'd love to have you on.
That'll be great to have you back. And your wife, how does she feel about having a husband who's now an author?
Well, you have a great publishing house. You have a great publicist, right? Do you have a literary agent also?
I do. I have a wonderful agent. Yes.
Okay, so you got the whole shebang as far as an author goes, up on that level. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. So I've been able to work with some great people.
So she doesn't think you're going to be a bum. That's good, right?
Jury's still out, but I don't. No, she does not think I'm going to be a bum. I don't think so. She's holding back if she does believe that.
I'm kidding. You know, I'm joking. You already have tremendous success. So, you know, I'm sure she's very supportive and excited about it.
She's incredibly supportive. Yes. Yes.
So we need to meet your mom and your wife next time we have you on.
Yeah, they'll be in the corners next time.
Yeah, right.
Watching over me.
Stephen, thank you so much. It was great fun having you on the show. Really,
it's my pleasure.
Appreciate you. All the best with your novel, Graveyard Fields. And for anyone who's watching over on Amazon, Graveyard Fields is in the carousel, so you can simply go and pop it into the cart and get a copy of the book.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Just like that. Go get it. Go get it. Buy copies for your friends. They're great Christmas gifts. Everything, right?
Couldn't be easier.
Yeah, just load that cart.
That's right. Just keep hitting that button.
Thanks so much, Stephen. It was great fun talking to you. And a huge big shout out to our audience, whether you were watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, and also over on Amazon. It was amazing having you join us.
And LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn. Yes. Thanks for reminding me.
Thank you for supporting us. We're so grateful for everybody who watches and you know, introducing authors to those worlds. And we're so happy to share you.
I love being shared. Thank you.
Stephen, thank you. Stay well. Thanks very much to everyone who's joined us today, and do stay well. Stay safe.